What a night it has been for one Bills Drive. What a night it has been for Bills Mafia to be hitting the refresh on our Twitter feed as we have been all off season long since the legal tampering period opened for NFL free agency. We have been waiting patiently on any big moves that could come across our news feed, as Bills Mafia members always do each and every offseason. And here we are waiting and waiting and waiting, and we get the massive news that the Buffalo Bills have signed Von Miller as well as tight end O.J. Howard, two new members of the Buffalo Bills. And I have to say, as soon as I saw the news that Von Miller was signed by the Buffalo Bills, I was ecstatic that this move was made. I love every bit of it. And before we get some of the haters and some of the naysayers saying, oh, they gave him too much money and this and that, going into this offseason, I said it at the tail end of this past season, after the knife to the heart that was the Kansas City Chiefs AFC divisional round game, I said to myself, okay, going into this offseason, we got to go for it. We have to get as many solid players on this team as possible in order to inch closer and closer towards a Super Bowl championship. That's what we're playing for. That's what each and every team is competing for. And signing a player like Von Miller does that. Signing a player of Von Miller's caliber does that. Von Miller has been one of the best players in NFL history over the course of his career. Just in terms of the last 10 years, you look at consistently production-wise what Von Miller has done, few players have been able to do it in consecutive seasons, let alone for two separate teams. I'm talking about a two-time Super Bowl champion with two different teams. I'm talking about the all-time sacks leader in Denver Broncos history. And I'm talking about a player that, yes, he does have years on his resume. He's 31, 32 years old, heading into his age 33 season. This deal on the surface, when it was first reported that Von Miller signed with the Buffalo Bills, it's a 6-year deal for $120 million, and Bills Mafia members are freaking out thinking that this is 6 years, guaranteed. But the wizard that is Brandon Beane, general manager of the Buffalo Bills, he put this contract out there specifically as a structured 3-year deal. That's what this deal is. It's 3 years for $53 million, $17.5 million per year. And beyond that, if Von Miller decides he can, retire and ride off into the sunset, he can do just that. And those remaining 3 years don't exist. So this was just, hey, we're gonna offer you this contract. There were plenty of suitors for Von Miller. 6 teams I've heard, including the Rams and Bills and 4 others. So for Von Miller to decide to come here, it is a massive, massive move for the Buffalo Bills. It is a win now move that is more necessary now than ever. And I cannot wait to see Von Miller in training camp at St. John Fisher. I will be there. I cannot wait to see Von Miller on Sundays, Mondays, Thursdays, whatever days that the Buffalo Bills are playing during the regular season. I cannot wait to see this man line up in Buffalo Bills red, white, and blue. This is one of the best signings that the Buffalo Bills could pull off for this particular offseason, because this is a proven commodity. This is not a player that has had some good years. We don't know what we're going to get out of him. We know what we're going to get from Von Miller. He is a hand in the dirt, dominant edge rusher that I think has been one of the best defensive ends in the NFL over the course of his career. Top 2, top 3, maybe the best. So to get one of those guys on your team, whether he's 31 or 32, doesn't matter. We're here to win. We're here to win now. And this is a big feather in the cap of Buffalo Bills general manager Brandon Beane. I mean, a lot of Bills Mafia members over the course of this offseason so far were wondering when that big move was going to come. Nobody saw this coming. Nobody reported it. Nobody had the inside track on it. The only person that did was the insider, the ultimate insider, Adam Schefter, who posted that Von Miller was talking about Buffalo on his Instagram. And then the news just broke that Von Miller had signed this 6-year deal with the Buffalo Bills in the amount of $120 million, but the deal is essentially a structured 3-year deal for $53 million. That's what the optics don't tell you until you hear that that news, or until you see that, until you hear the news that it's structured and not 6 years. I'm getting a lot of comments here. And then on the flip side of that, minutes after I hear the news of Von Miller, and I'm already ecstatic about Von Miller coming to Buffalo, I hear the news that O.J. Howard had signed with the Buffalo Bills. You go back in the history of the show, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 2017, the 2017 NFL draft, so 5 years ago, I wanted O.J. Howard on the Buffalo Bills. He was a guy that I really liked for Buffalo coming out of that draft. I thought he would have done really well here at that time. And he goes to Tampa Bay. He's a top 20 pick to Tampa Bay at that time. And he doesn't end up becoming the player that, victim of circumstance. I think Winston to Brady and Gronkowski coming on board kind of, put the kibosh on O.J. Howard in Tampa Bay. But the Bills bringing in a player like O.J. Howard, this galvanizes that offense in a completely new way. I've talked about it on any show that I can get on, whether it's this one that is my own show or any other podcasts throughout this offseason or even during the regular season. If the Buffalo Bills, quote myself here, if the Buffalo Bills had a solid tight end that they could pair with Dawson Knox, this offense would just be that much better moving forward. It provides a new dimension to the offense that most offenses just don't have. Most offenses don't have one great tight end, let alone two good tight ends. So I'm very excited for this move as well. It's a 1-year deal. It's a deal that I think sends a message as well. I think it sends a message to the current roster, Dawson Knox, namely that, hey, Dawson, we're going to try to re-sign you, but we got a guy here that's on a 1-year deal. And if he does really well in this 1 year, along with you, we're not going to sign you to a 6-year, $40 million contract. You also add in the fact that you have options now, another real athletic, legitimate option for Josh Allen to throw to that most people are asking for another wideout, and rightfully so. I understand that. I think that's a good thought. But I think in the process of this, we've lost sight of the tight end. The tight end is a position that is just as valuable in today's National Football League as it was 5 years ago. And that's when the tight end position really started to, quote unquote, evolve. So this is an awesome move for the Buffalo Bills. I think that the Bills got a lot better today, specifically with these two moves. You add in the fact that we've been very active this offseason. The simple terms of it is that a lot of fans going in thought, well, because of the salary cap issues that we have, we're not going to be as active as we normally are. Brandon Beane said, hold my beer. I'm going to make this team great. I'm going to continue to make this team better. I'm going to go out, leave no stone unturned at making this roster as good as it can be. Von Miller is a huge part of that. Roger Saffold is a huge part of that. It's not the fact that we're being active. It's who we are bringing in. Guys like Von Miller, Roger Saffold, these are NFL proven commodities that in years past, the Buffalo Bills would have never have been able to attract. One of my favorite comments here, Eric Williamson says, Miller will be a great mentor for our young defensive ends, Rousseau, Epinesa, and Boogie. No doubt about it. They're learning literally from one of the best in the game, in Von Miller. Doug Clark said the day started out with crummy news about J.D. McKissic backing out of his contract to return to Washington, to being a great day with bringing in Von Miller and O.J. Howard. I couldn't agree more, Doug. The fact that McKissic recanted his accepted offer to come to Buffalo caught me by surprise. I didn't even know if that was something that could be done by a player until today. But nonetheless, hey, no ill will towards J.D. McKissic. It is what it is. He decided to stay close to home. That's fine. It makes me wonder, though, in that regard, what will happen now with Buffalo in terms of who they're looking for at the running back position. I did see one running back just fall off the board in terms of the free agent rankings with Raheem Mostert going to Miami on a 1-year deal. That's somebody that obviously would have caught my attention for Buffalo, but will we leave no stone unturned at that position remains to be seen. The fact that Von Miller decided to come here is just such big news. This is a major splash in terms of NFL free agency. It was all over Twitter, all over the NFL networks, all over ESPN, NFL Network, you name it. And it'll jump out at people, 6 years, $120 million. But hey, that's not the deal. It's 3 years, $53 million in the grand scheme of things. And realistically, I don't know how much longer Von Miller is going to play. But what I do know is he's playing right here, right now. And that's all I care about. And listen, people are going to say, oh, the Bills are going to have salary cap issues in the next few years with Allen's contract and this and that. That's one of the reasons why they're trying to win right now before Allen's contract jumps from $23 million to $43 million. That's why this team is trying to get to where they need to be in terms of winning a Super Bowl. And Von Miller has been the missing piece, not once, but twice for 2 different franchises in 2 very different years for the Broncos and the Rams, winning 2 Super Bowls for both of those teams. Can he be that for the Buffalo Bills? I really hope so. I think that this could be the missing piece to this defense. You go back to, I believe it's 2016, the Buffalo Bills have not had a double-digit sack master, I think since Lorenzo Alexander. I think that's the last man to do it, former guest of the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. So I do have an awesome guest announcement that I will be making in the next couple days. Former Buffalo Bill, longtime Buffalo Bill, actually, that I'm very much looking forward to having on the show to interact with and talk about the game that he played compared to the game that is played now and how football has changed over the years since his career ended. I won't give anything away, but it is a former Buffalo Bill. It is a Buffalo Bills legend that you guys will really enjoy hearing from. So I am just super excited about this news. I think that this is one of the better days in recent Bills history. It's deja vu a little bit because it does remind me of Mario Williams coming here and being a recent free agent signing. As recent, well, I shouldn't say recent, but 10 years ago, he was brought in and seen as the missing piece. And I think that Von Miller could easily be seen as that missing piece for the Buffalo Bills. This is a awesome day to be a Buffalo Bills fan. I want your comments, so fire away your comments in the comment section below, and I will obviously get to them at this point in the show. There's just a lot to really be excited about if you're a Buffalo Bills fan. You want to talk about fantasy football as well, which is something that I obviously greatly enjoy. This is, to me, a big move in terms of fantasy football. I'm looking at, team rankings and team defenses for fantasy football already, and I would easily say that Buffalo's defense was almost number 1. And I have their defense in my dynasty league, which I'm very happy about that because we're going to be good. We're going to have a defense that can actually get after the quarterback that's been a missing dimension of this team for quite some time. And I hope that this is an area of the team that I know for a fact will be mightily improved in the presence of one Von Miller. And really, it sends a message to the rest of the roster that we're going for it. I mean, this is a Super Bowl caliber move. This man was on a Super Bowl roster last season, this past Super Bowl a month ago. And this is a guy that knows what it takes to get there and to win at that level. So to have that in your locker room, it just cultivates that culture that is always constantly talked about. But bringing in a player of that caliber, talking about it and then bringing a player in of that caliber is just another level. This is a move too that I definitely don't want to rain on anyone's parade, but I think this is a move that kind of silences or distracts us from who has been off this defense now. On Harrison Phillips and Levi Wallace, those are two guys that I really liked. And Harrison Phillips off the field, obviously as great a guy as any. On the field, we saw him have a little bit of a resurgence towards the tail end of the season, and Levi Wallace stepped up big for us when Trey White was out. And now both those guys are gone. So getting a Von Miller, getting an OJ Howard, great. But I think we do have to now look at what other areas are there that the Buffalo Bills could, what other areas are there that they could address. Doug says, what are your thoughts on the CB2? How do you think that will be addressed, or do you think they just go with Dane Jackson? How do I think that area will be addressed is via the draft. There are a lot of good corners in this draft, especially in the first and second round. I'm not saying that the Bills should most definitely use their first-round draft choice on a corner, but I definitely think if not the first, it should be the second round because there are a lot of really good guys from really good programs that have played against players that went into the NFL as wideouts and have been very successful. SEC corners have really taken over the collegiate ranks since the days of Trey White getting drafted alongside Marshawn Lattimore a few years back. Really, since then, it seems like SEC corners are the corners that really make it in this league. So if I were to kind of, without pigeonholing ourselves, I would kind of look at that conference and say, who is out there at Clemson? Who is out there at Bama at corner that could really come in here and be those difference maker type corners for us right out of the gate? That's something that I'm definitely looking out for. Ken Zintel says, what's up with the Bees situation? Cole Beasley, that is. To me, I think the craziest thing about this Von Miller situation, along with OJ Howard, is that you probably don't bring in a guy like Von Miller. You probably don't bring in a guy like OJ Howard if it isn't for a guy like Micah Hyde. Micah Hyde took a pay cut, essentially. He took signing bonus money up front to save on our cap, and it allowed us to spend some money, spread some money around. Pretty awesome stuff from a captain. That's what a captain does. Jack Eichel, I'm talking to you. That's what a captain does. So, Micah Hyde taking that cut, I think was big. And the best thing about Von Miller and OJ Howard coming on here is that you do have other moves that you can still make that create cap space. One of those moves is getting rid of Cole Beasley. One of those moves is getting rid of Mario Addison or Jerry Hughes. Whether they do that or not, I'm not sure. But I know that Cole Beasley requested that trade a few weeks ago. That was news, I think, a week ago that circulated. I don't expect him to be on the team, but whether it's via trade, via release, either way, the Bills will alleviate themselves of that cap space. Ideally, I'd like to get something for him, but I don't know if that's going to happen. I think that's easier said than done for Cole Beasley in terms of getting a trade. If Jarvis Landry couldn't be traded, it's going to be very tough to trade Cole Beasley. And Kevin Johnson rounds out the show and says the Bills D is going to be so scary this year. I completely agree. It's going to be a very exciting time heading into training camp. I'm very pumped up because I know that number 40 jersey is going to be flying off the shelves. I might buy one. I've been a big Von Miller fan since day one. He was the number 2 overall pick back in 2010 or 11, and that was the year that we took Marcel Darius. So realistically, I think that if, obviously Denver didn't take him, I think he would have been a Bill for the majority of his career. But it's cool that he found his way here. Awesome time to be a Bills fan right now. Very exciting time to be a Bills fan. And Brandon Beane, shout out to him for signing Von Miller and OJ Howard when that was not even a thought. The thought of Von Miller and OJ Howard didn't even cross my mind until they were signed. This wasn't reported. This wasn't news until it was news. So here we go. Onward and upward. Bills offseason continues. Von Miller, OJ Howard in the building. And I can't wait for more news to discuss on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. I'm Ryan Thomas. Go Bills.